again to do a couple more whispered poetry readings. Today I thought I would do a couple of poems by some poets who I feel very personally close to. One is Sexton, and another is Emily Dickinson. And actually, even though I've loved Sexton poetry for a very long time, the idea to do a whispered version of one came from a suggestion by Whispering in Blue, a personal favorite whisperer of mine. And I chose this poem by Sexton, which is called Her Kind, because I think it best exemplifies some of the thematic material that Sexton wrestled with for most of her career. She was a person who had troubles with mental health concerns for her entire life, and a lot of her poetry has dealt with those problems and has been labeled as confessional poetry by a lot of critics. Her Kind is an excellent poem because she kind of addresses the myriad stereotypes of women in her time, from mother to witch to martyr, and talks about how she's really tried to fit in as a woman in her world, but she's different than what is expected of her, and she never quite fits the mold that's prescribed for women. And I love the imagery in this poem, and it's very visceral and very vivid, so I hope you like it. Her Kind by Sexton. Have gone out, a possessed witch haunting the black air, braver at night, dreaming evil. I have done my hitch over the plain houses, light by light, lonely thing, 12-fingered, out of mind. A woman like that is not a woman quite. I have been her kind. I have found the warm caves in the woods, filled them with skillets, carvings, shelves, closets, silks, innumerable goods. Fixed the suppers for the worms and the elves, whining, rearranging the disaligned. A woman like that is misunderstood. I have been her kind. I have ridden in your cart, driver, waved my nude arms at villages going by, learning the last bright roots, survivor, where your flames still bite my thigh, and my ribs crack where your wheels wind. A woman like that is not ashamed to die. I have been her kind. And the next poem I thought I'd read is another personal favorite of mine by Emily Dickinson. And this is a poem called I Felt a Funeral in My Brain. And I especially like this poem because, like Sexton, Dickinson dealt with mental health problems, especially depression, anxiety. Some people think that she bordered on psychosis at various points in her life. But one of Dickinson's great gifts was her sense of self-awareness and her ability to put on the page the life of her mind in a way that very few other poets are able to do. And this poem, I Felt a Funeral in My Brain, is perhaps the best illustration of that. It looks at a time in Dickinson's life where she felt as though she was falling into insanity, into madness, and she's watching from this kind of liminal position between sanity and insanity, and struggling to keep a grip, essentially. And still, even as she struggles to take control, she realizes that may be impossible, and she imagines kind of a figurative or symbolic funeral for her consciousness as she descends into madness. And I especially like the ambiguity of the ending. There isn't closure. It begins, the last stanza ends mid-sentence. The last line is hyphenated, which has caused some problems for scholars and critics. this poem is not truly an ending. It leaves open kind of great possibilities, and especially leaves open the possibility that the worst is still to come, that even though she feels herself slipping, she knows that she's headed for the true nightmare. So it's a very sobering poem, but also there's a real beauty in its darkness. So here you go. This is Emily Dickinson. I felt a funeral in my brain. I felt a funeral in my brain, and mourners to and fro kept treading, till it seemed that sense was breaking through. And when they all were seated, a service like a drum kept beating, till I thought my mind was going numb. And then I heard them lift a box and creak across my soul with those same boots of lead. Then space began to toll, as the heavens were a bell, and being but an ear, and I in silence some strange race, wrecked, solitary, here. And then a plank in reason broke, and I dropped down, and hit a world at every plunge, and finished knowing then. So there you have it, a couple of poems, very poorly read by yours truly. Again, the first one was by Sexton, and the second was by Emily Dickinson. So if you are listening to these and you have any requests, I'd be happy to read whatever poetry you might be interested in. I'm also interested in trying out some short stories. So let me know, and let me know if you like the whispering or the softly spoken better. So thanks for listening.